Are you curious about how tactical empathy works for you as a leader? Stay tuned for this fabulous, in-depth conversation with Derek Gaunt, author of Ego, Authority, Failure. Sit back, enjoy the conversation, and prepare to take your leadership to a whole new level. Hi, Shannon Waller here, and welcome to Team Success. I am beyond excited because today I have an author interview with Derek Gaunt, who has written a book that frankly changed my brain, changed my leadership style, gave me new insight. It's one of the books I started raving about to our leadership team. I raved about it to my team leader groups. It's called Ego, Authority, Failure. And occasionally you run into these books. It's like, where has this book been? This is one of these books. So Derek, I know I'm raving, but I really am not big of a fan.
You are making me blush.
Yes.
Thank you very much. That was very kind.
That's good. Well, my listeners will know this. One of the things that's really important to me, I'm an avid learner. I love maximizer strategies, which I do consider tactical empathy and negotiation to be. However, you make it incredibly practical for leaders and for leadership and for entrepreneurial companies. And I'm like, yes, this is the piece I was missing. So I cannot wait to dive in. I do want to read the subtitle. So it's Ego, Authority, Failure. And if you don't have it, and if you're near a computer, look it up and go buy it because it's that good. It's great to listen to. You have a great voice, by the way.
Thanks.
So it's using emotional intelligence like a hostage negotiator to succeed as a leader.
Yeah.
So that is the subtitle of the book. All right. So before we jump into all the yummy content that I can't wait to have people know. So Derek, a little bit about you. How did you get started? What's your history? You were a hostage negotiator. Probably some days it feels like you still are. But how did you get started in this whole conversation?
My law enforcement career began in 88. I became a hostage negotiator in 97. Team leader in 2001, and then team commander in 2004. And that's a position that I held up until the time that I actually punched out in 2017. If you're doing the math, the vast majority of my adult career in law enforcement was as a member of our hostage negotiations team, which is how I met Chris Voss, who is the CEO and founder of the Black Swan Group, author of the book Never Split the Difference. Chris got transferred to Washington, D.C. in 2000. I want to say it was 2000, yeah. Not technically Washington, D.C. He was transferred to Quantico, which is about 40 miles south of Washington, D.C. And he was assigned to the Crisis Negotiation Unit of the FBI. And for those that don't know, the Crisis Negotiation Unit of the FBI is the ivory tower of negotiations. They speak, and globally, negotiators listen.
Got you.
So I was pretty prolific in the DC area. I knew a person that knew him, and she introduced us, and Chris and I became fast friends. He left the Bureau in 2007.
Okay.
And he said, I'm going to hang out my own shingle. I'm going to teach corporations and individuals how to apply what we did as hostage negotiators to their world. And I said, good luck with that. Because at the time I couldn't get my mind around it.
Yeah.
I really didn't try to get my mind around it because, I was still immersed in what I was doing. And so fast forward to 2010. 2010 comes along. Chris calls me up and he says, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to fly to Germany. And I need you to teach hostage negotiations practices and principles to executive members of the China Development Bank. So if you're following this story closely, I'm taking a foreign language, which is hostage negotiation, over to Germany, and I don't speak German, to teach hostage negotiations to Chinese, and I don't speak Chinese.
Uh-huh.
And I said, this sounds like a recipe for disaster, Chris. I do not even know your stuff. He goes, I'll send you a couple of slide decks. You'll be fine. Those were his words. And so I didn't sleep the entire time over to Frankfurt. So I'm going across the Atlantic, trying to get familiar with the concept and the content. And the more I read it, the more I said, yeah, this applies, because at the end of the day, hostage negotiation is nothing more than a sensitive conversation. And if you can teach people how to navigate any sensitive conversation, the skills will be applicable regardless of the space. And so the light bulb went off for me, and I talked to Chinese, and I came back and I said, this is fantastic. They loved it. The China Development Bank loved it. The Goethe Business School, University of Frankfurt, they loved it. So I knew we were on to something. So it made it real easy for me to join Chris in his endeavors as a contract employee. And then in 2017, when I left, I became full-time. And so I traveled all over the globe teaching businesses and individuals how to apply hostage negotiation practices and principles to their world to improve what they're doing. And here's the kicker, Shannon, it's not only professionally, but personally. Because as I mentioned, all we're talking about are sensitive conversations, and our personal lives are replete with sensitive conversations, right?
Yep.
And this is a side tangent here. That's where I get the most satisfaction, to be honest with you. I mean, I think it's cool that we're helping people make money hand over fist, but when you can have an immigrant come up to you at a live event with tears in her eyes, holding up her citizenship card that had been hung up in Customs and Border Patrol, I provided her with several strategies that she could use. She flew from Hawaii to LA, and with tears in her eyes, she said, "Thank you for what you told me. I did exactly what you did, and this is the end result." That's more gratifying to me than the CEO who knocks down a $10 million deal.
Incredible. It's interesting. I mean, that's a really profound personal example, but I think of spouses, and I think of kids, and I think of marriages, and I think of brothers and sisters, and all of the opportunities there are for sensitive conversation. And we hear about the trauma and the drama, but you don't often get to learn or figure out the strategies to actually prevent that from happening. So that's profound.
Yeah, it is. The strategy it's not that complex. It really isn't. This is not rocket science. This is just a matter of, can you go into every conversation where you want or need something from another person and go into that conversation with the mindset of, it's not about me? If you go into that conversation with that mindset, my goodness, things just get so much easier. If you go in with the mindset, assuming that you don't have the complete picture, assuming that you have something to learn, that's going to open up a whole world for you that you otherwise wouldn't get to because you're so fixated on where you want to end up and what your goal and objective is. And so this curiosity mindset is something that I've been harping on really stridently for the last 5 years, because it takes care of a lot of the angst on your side when it comes to engaging in these sensitive conversations. So instead of going in afraid and nervous, and you're probably still going to be afraid and nervous, but you can tamp that down and not have that negatively impact your performance by saying to yourself, I do not have the complete picture. Because the reality is you don't. I do not care how much research you've done before the conversation. I don't care how much due diligence, whatever. There are things about your counterpart that you just don't have any clue about, that you will uncover in the conversation if you are listening. And I say that because all of us hide information from our counterparts. You hide information, I hide information. And if you and I are doing it, you better believe the counterpart is doing it. And so staying curious should be the biggest part of your strategy.
It certainly is true and never split the difference, but it really hits home from a leadership standpoint. Is I think a lot of leaders think they need to have all the answers. To be the ones telling, not necessarily asking. They feel like they're supposed to know. And this is why I love your title of your book, Ego, Authority, Failure. In other words, don't do that. It's interesting because it can be tough to be curious. It actually takes, I think, a certain confidence level to have it not be about you, to make it about somebody else. So let's drill down on that mindset piece again, because you have to be willing to get out of your own way, is how I think about it. What's your take on that?
So when I talk about it not being about you, I'm not telling you to just completely disregard your goal and objective and where you want to end up. That's the whole purpose for the conversation, is for you to influence them into moving in a direction that you need them to go, whatever that might look like. But the sequencing of the conversation has to be taken into consideration. The conventional wisdom when it comes to sequencing a conversation is, I'm going to go into the conversation and I'm going to throw all of my data and information on the table. I'm going to explain. I'm going to pitch gain. I'm going to pitch benefit. If the leverage is in my favor, I may even threaten a little bit before I make my ask or my demand. And from the Black Swan's perspective, we are more in line with what Stephen Covey said so many years ago, and that is seeking to understand before we want to be understood. And so what does that mean? That means all of your conversation starts with tactical empathy first. Your golden objective comes last. And when you're thinking about tactical empathy, I want you to think about it. Think about tactical empathy being a tent.
Okay.
And the skills of the Black Swan Group are the poles that support that tent. It's not a matter of displaying tactical empathy. Okay, I've done that. Now it's my turn to do X, Y, and Z. Tactical empathy in reality is being played out throughout the entirety of the conversation. Whether that conversation is going well or whether that conversation is going poorly. We are going to continue to infuse tactical empathy in that conversation until the time that the interaction terminates. But the mindset, we have a mindset called caviar. And that mindset is just a way to mentally prepare for the tough conversation. Now, there are going to be those conversations that happen to you. You come to work at 8 o'clock and at 8:02, you're in a conflict you haven't had time to prepare for. But by and large, those are outliers. The ones that we dread the most are the ones that we have time to think about. And so as we're preparing for that, the caviar mindset is the mindset that everyone should be in. Caviar is an acronym, CAVIAAR.
Okay.
Curiosity. I mentioned it a couple of minutes ago. Go into the conversation judgment-free, expecting to learn something. The first A stands for accept. That means you need to accept the fact that at some point during the conversation, you are going to get smashed in the face. They are going to attack you. It's going to come out of left field. It's not going to make any sense to you, but it is nonetheless going to happen. So I'm telling myself prior to the conversation, I don't know when, but at some point, Shannon's going to smack me in the face. And so I'm mentally preparing myself for that inevitability. That, coupled with curiosity, will keep me from negatively responding to the trigger. Because the minute that you attack me in a conversation, from my perspective, I'm a pretty nice guy. There's no need to really attack me. So if someone chooses to attack me, they are expressing a sentiment that I need to further investigate. The attack is coming from one of three places. Number one, if you're attacking me, you have been trying to get a message across to me and I'm not listening.
Gotcha.
I'm missing it completely. Now, it may not have been explicit. It may have been implied messages, but they want implied messages responded to just like they want explicit messages responded to. So from your perspective in this example, Shannon, you're standing on the ridgeline waving a red flag about an issue that you have with whatever it is that we're talking about, and I, from your perspective, am ignoring it.
Yep.
And so, you're going to lash out. It's no different than being a child. You say no to a child or you ignore a child, what do? They get louder. They get louder and more demonstrative. And so that's a manifestation of their frustration with me not listening. The second place that the attack comes from is they're under tremendous pressure on their side of the table, and you have failed to acknowledge it. I cannot tell you how beneficial it's going to be for you and the people that listen to this podcast on a regular basis to understand the potency of acknowledging and articulating that acknowledgement of the pressure that your counterpart is on the other side of the table, regardless of what their position is. If they're outwardly facing you, somebody is expecting them to succeed. That means they're under pressure.
Okay.
And so the first basket is you've been telling me something and I haven't heard you, haven't been listening. Second basket is I have failed to acknowledge the pressure that you're under. The third basket that the attack might come from is they're doing it to manipulate me. So regardless of where the attack is coming from, you have to stay in the moment, stay curious in the moment and figure out which one of those buckets or baskets is the attack coming from. Because unexpressed negative emotions never die. They never go anywhere. In fact, the attack is a testament to that because you haven't been paying attention.
Right.
The negative emotions didn't go away. They just got worse. And so if you fail to acknowledge them or you pretend like they're not there, they're coming back, and they're coming back with more vinegar.
That's a good word. I just want to make sure I understand the third one. So not listening, I totally get. They're under tremendous pressure that has not been acknowledged.
Yep.
And the third one is they're feeling manipulated or they're trying to manipulate you.
They're trying to manipulate you.
Got it. So they're attacking as a way to get you off your game.
All I have to do is raise my voice to you and I can get you off your game. Now, you may not think you're getting off your game because you may be of the ilk that you're going to look at me during an attack and go, how dare you? You're not going to attack me. And you might right back at me. But the fact of the matter is, most people won't. Most people will take it. Most people will comply, acquiesce, or otherwise do something against their best interest just to make the attack go away. These people, attacking another has borne them so much fruit in the past that they're never going to go away from it.
Gotcha.
Because they know the odds are the majority of the people are not going to push back. They're going to fold. There's only a small percentage of the population that's actually going to push back against their behavior. I mean, those are pretty good odds. Those are pretty good odds. I got a pretty good idea that most people are not going to push back.
Yeah.
And because of that, I'm going to be successful the majority of the time.
Gotcha.
And so it's all about them manipulating you in the situation.
Okay, cool. So that's C and A. What are the other ones?
V is for venting. Vent before you go into the room. Find a trusted colleague, a partner, someone who's willing to listen to you with an open mind, and you just lay it out, the good, the bad, the ugly about the conversation. How bad do you feel about having to go into this conversation? What kind of anxiety is being produced? What are you afraid of happening? Everything, every blemish, every pimple, everything about the conversation that you do not like, you need to vomit that up on to someone else. The more you do that before you go into the room, the less likely that stuff is going to come out when you're in the room. The I in caviar is identifying to the best of your ability with a cold read, the personality type of your counterpart negotiator. Do they exhibit signs of being an accommodator? Do they exhibit signs of an assertive or an analyst? It's important for you to understand, or at least make an educated guess via the cold read as to who they are, because that's going to determine how you engage them. For example, I'm an analyst. I don't like a lot of small talk.
Right.
I like a lot of evidentiary conversation. You're going to say something, you're going to back it up with facts. And so I often appear cold, aloof, reclusive, rude. I know that that's how 66% of the population views me. So I have to modify my behavior because I know that there is a 66% chance that the person that I'm going to engage has a worldview different than mine. What does that mean? That means a 66% chance that I'm either going to be dealing with an assertive or an accommodator. And each one of those, for different reasons, has a problem with interacting with people like me. So I need to know that, so I know what behaviors to modify to become less of a threat in the conversation, because at the end of the day, that's what tactical empathy is all about, removing yourself as a threat to the other person. Because as long as you're viewed as a threat, meaningful dialogue is not going to take place. As long as you are viewed as a threat, the amygdala has been activated. When those things are activated, your ability to process, your ability to engage your prefrontal cortex is impeded, period. And so I'm doing everything in my power so that you don't look at me through a prism of being a threat.
That's fascinating.
So identify the conflict personality type. So you need to figure out, are they more likely an assertive, an analyst, or an accommodator? Important to know who they are because it'll tell you what you need to modify. Assertives are very direct, blunt, come across as angry. They will tell you, I'm not yelling. I'm just being direct. However, when you hit an accommodator with that tone of voice, you're going to shut them down completely. They're going to think, oh my gosh, I just offended him. What did I do wrong? Should I apologize? They're involved in their own internal monologue, all because you started yelling. So not only are they not listening to you, but they're having a hard time even listening to themselves. The worst type match for an assertive is an analyst, and vice versa. The assertive wants the win in the moment, and they'll figure out the how later. That drives an assertive crazy. A yes without a how for me is pointless. You can give me all the yeses you want. If you can't give me a how, I don't believe you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the accommodator is, I can't be aloof with them as an analyst. The assertive can't be rude to them. It's funny because the worst type match for an accommodator is another accommodator.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, that's the worst type match for an accommodator is another accommodator, because they will get absolutely nothing done. They will have a great time doing it.
Yeah, they'll just say lots of nice things, but nothing will actually happen.
Yeah, because the accommodators are deathly afraid of disappointing you in the moment.
Right.
The accommodator is the epitome of a ghoster. The accommodator won't tell you no to your face.
Yeah.
And in fact, they will actually tell you yes to your face, knowing that at best it's a maybe, more likely it's a no.
Yeah.
But they can't tell you that. And so these are the people that will nod their head. Yeah, great idea. Oh, we're totally in alignment. Yeah, all right, great, thanks. We're on board. And then crickets for weeks, for months, because they don't know how to disappoint. These folks are so beholden to maintaining the relationship, regardless of what that relationship looks like. The analogy I would use all the time is they will walk you up to the edge of a minefield and never tell you it's a minefield. They will just hope that we don't step on anything.
Great. You just said the worst matches. What are the best matches? I'm super curious now.
There is no best match.
Okay.
There is no best match.
What about analytical?
If I'm faced with another analyst,
Sorry.
That's a good point. I feel better about that, because if they're a true analyst, they took the time as much, if not more, than I did to prepare. That's huge for me.
Yeah.
An assertive won't come in prepared for anything except for yelling. And so I am simpatico with somebody who's going to sit down and actually noodle something beforehand. So if there is a best match, it would probably be that. An analyst to an analyst.
Is there a best match for assertives or for...
No, assertives will try to beat each other to death. You know, it's like Thunderdome with them. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. They have no patience for me because I want implementation steps and they never have any. They love working with the accommodator because the accommodator will get smacked around the room for an extended period of time, and they love that. Now, having said that, the accommodator does have a tolerance level. And once that is eclipsed, they are extremely volatile, extremely dangerous, extremely vengeful. Once they realize that you don't have a similar appreciation of the relationship that they do,
right.
Once they've bent over backwards and there's been no reciprocity from you, you would stand a better chance of scratching a bobcat between the ears in a phone booth than you would trying to wrangle an accommodator that has been affronted or offended. You're
dead to them, basically.
Yeah, and it is scorched earth because they tend to be more emotive than other people. And they suppress. They take a lot on the chin and they give a lot of grace. But once that's been eclipsed, watch out.
I know someone who is like the definition, the picture of that in the encyclopedia. It's interesting. Yeah, that describes the circumstance to a T. Yeah. Okay. So these are all types, and it's important to know who you are. Now, none of it sounds like best self, if you know what I mean. Are these like tendencies or these things you kind of just need to know?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I should have led with that. What I'm talking about here, Shannon, is your default personality.
Perfect.
Because we hear all the time, well, I'm a combination of all 3. Yeah, you probably are when things are going well. Each one of us knows how to dance in each one of those circles when it's sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns. But when you got skin in the game, the pressure is on, and you get attacked, your default is, what is your initial reaction to that trigger?
Okay, so it's triggered behavior. Love that.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm pretty sure I know what I am from this description.
And what is that?
Assertive.
I tell people all the time, think about this. All of those criteria that I just laid out. Skin in the game, pressure is on, and then someone says to you, Shannon, I don't even know why the people that you represent sent you out to engage me. I seriously have a problem with your integrity and your competence.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you hear that, if your first inclination is like, how dare you, I'm going to smash you right in your face right now. If that is your initial response, then yeah, you're probably an assertive. If your initial response to that is, where's this coming from? What did I do to deserve that? Was it the phone call that I made? Was it the email that I sent? Why would he or she say that? Then you're probably an accommodator.
Mm.
If your response to that is that you got no data to back that up, that is hyperbolic and you got no evidence, then you're probably an analyst.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, I got you.
All right, so understand this. I'm not suggesting that one is better than the other.
Mm-hmm.
All of the people that are in each one of these categories bring something of value to the table. So I would never suggest that you need to not be assertive anymore. You need to change who you are. I'm not saying any of that. What's important is know yourself so you know what you need to modify when you are meeting with someone who is not like you. I'm probably beating a dead horse now. If I am an accommodator and you're an assertive, that means rapid fire, bulldozing type dialogue with me is not going to remove you as a threat. It's going to make you a bigger threat. And as I mentioned earlier, if I view you as a threat, you have in fact made me dumber in the conversation. I am not as cognitively nimble as I otherwise would be. So you can pontificate all you want. I'm not listening. And if I am listening, I'm not connecting dots because I can't process because you're still a threat.
Yeah. This is so good, Derek, because first of all, what you're talking about is your self-awareness as you are going into the conversation so that you can be less likely, maybe a little bit of a beat, to be triggered because you know you're going to get attacked. So owning your own response, which is amazing, so that you can respond with more, I'm going to call it grace, and keep the person cognitively nimble. What an awesome term that is. And just recognize how you could be or will be perceived as a threat if you are clueless about yourself. So this is gold.
And one thing I wanted to mention about the trigger thing, because you said keep yourself from being triggered. You cannot do that. You're going to get triggered. Now, I think it was Viktor Frankl said many, many years ago, in between stimulus and response is space.
Yes.
And it's in that space that you can determine how you're going to react. Mm-hmm. And so while it's impossible for you to not get triggered, you can control what you do after you get triggered. One of the hacks that is pretty important is this idea, you just talked about self-awareness, self-labeling.
Yes.
And so ego, authority, failure, talked about labels ad nauseum. Never split the difference. We talked about labels ad nauseum. Labeling is a verbal observation of the data that you're getting from your counterpart. It's where you verbally acknowledge an emotion or a dynamic that's conveyed in their messaging, right? As soon as you label a negative, it dissipates that negative immediately. And so this idea of self-labeling is when I'm in a tough conversation and I get attacked by the other side, one of the first things I do for myself is say, Shannon's starting to make me angry. Probably internally I use other words, but you get the picture. I just label myself, Shannon is starting to make me angry. And the minute that I do that is the minute that my negative emotions start to come down, my rational thinking starts to come up. I flip back to curiosity and go, where's that coming from? Mm-hmm. Which one of those baskets is this attack coming from?
You've just moved that from the back of your brain, or reactive hindbrains, whatever they're called, hippocampus, into your cognitive prefrontal cortex. The labeling takes it from that fight or flight.
Yep, exactly right.
Which I even just saw in a therapy thing lately. It's like, that is how to get yourself out of that state.
Exactly.
That's great coaching.
And here's the thing, and this is not just Derek Gaunt talking this stuff. There are tons of studies online that you can look at where they have hooked people up to fMRIs. And for example, they'll show them a horrific photograph.
Yeah.
For example, a mutilated cat. And they'll show it and they'll look at the fMRI and the electricity in the hippocampus and the amygdala is going nuts. It's like a thunderstorm in the summer. And the minute that the facilitator asks the participant, what are you feeling right now? The moment that they say disgusted, repulsed, grossed out, horrified. The moment that they label something about what they're feeling, the activity on the fMRI starts to dissipate immediately. It doesn't completely go away, but the thunderstorm is over.
Mm-hmm.
And so it works. I've seen it in action.
Cool. So back to caviar.
Yep.
We've got that. So now there are two A's. So identify, what are the last couple?
2 A's are accusations audit. You should be able to produce a list of accusations audit before you're going into the conversation. You need to ask yourself, what are the negative opinions, assumptions, or impressions does this person have about me, who I represent, and what we're going to talk about? If you were them, what would you be thinking about you?
Mm-hmm.
And then you make a list, and you're going to pepper the conversation with those accusations audits to mitigate those negatives. Because as I mentioned earlier, unexpressed negative emotions never die, never go away. So you can pretend like they're not there if you want to. They're going to come back and get you.
Can you give a couple of examples, like you're probably thinking, or can you just give some examples of that in conflict situation you've had with your team or something like that? Because this accusation audit is such a crucial capability and skill, and I learn the most when I hear other people's examples.
It's arguably our most effective skill.
100%.
It is nothing more than a preemptive label.
Mm-hmm.
You're labeling something that they haven't necessarily said yet. But based on your situationally insightful, intelligent guess about the environment and the circumstances, this is probably what they're thinking. And so there are 3 places within the conversation that the accusations audits go: at the beginning, before an ask, and before bad news.
Ooh. Okay. So beginning, before an ask, and before bad news.
I'm going to throw out 1 to 3 accusations audits at the beginning that are related solely to the intrusiveness of the meeting. You probably are ruining the day that you agreed to this meeting. It's probably the last thing that you wanted to do. I know you're extremely busy right now. I'm going to throw those 3 out almost immediately, because I don't care if the person agreed to meet with you. And this is not a surprise meeting. You guys have scheduled this in advance. There is still something they would rather be doing than sitting down talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so across the board, that's a boilerplate accusations audit. And then before an ask, I don't care how big or small the ask is. If anybody in your audience asks anything of anybody, it's got to be set up with a few accusations audits. Why? Because an ask is a threat.
Oh.
And an ask is a threat because you're changing my status quo.
Yes.
You're putting work on my plate that does not currently exist. And we, as human beings, we love our status quo because that's where comfort resides. That's where certainty resides. And now here you come along and you're going to ask me for something that's going to change that status quo. Even if it's something as benign as you want to ask me to help you move a water cooler from one side of the office to another. Am I here to suggest to you that that should be set up with an accusations audit? The answer is yes. Number 1, it never hurts to get a repetition in on using the skill. Number 2, moving the water cooler was not on my agenda today. And on some level, if you ask it without the accusations audit, I'm going to feel some kind of way. Mm-hmm. It may not rise to the surface where I'm going to say something to you about it or refuse to do it, but internally, I'm rolling my eyes. Internally, I'm sucking my teeth. But what you're getting externally is, sure, I'll help you move it. And so my point is, before an ask and before bad news is a courtesy where you're allowing them to brace themselves. People are so accepting of changes in the status quo or receiving bad news when they've had time to prepare themselves for it. If I were to smack you in the face, Shannon, from behind, it's going to hurt a lot worse than if I was standing in front of you. Why? Because if I was standing in front of you, you would have time to brace yourself, prepare for it. The accusations audit is the same way. And so it's a courtesy in that I want to give you the chance to gird yourself for something. Mm-hmm. And it's important with the accusations audit that you be as self-deprecating, as visceral as you can be. Mm-hmm. I do that, and I'm suggesting that you all do it for a specific reason. When I come up to you and say to you, I'm about to ruin your day, and I follow it with silence, your mind starts to race. You cannot imagine what's good. Yeah, you can actually. You're thinking of all kinds of terrible things that are going to come out of my mouth. And then I follow that with, you probably think that I'm the type of person that expects you to bend over backwards for everything that I ask. Now you're terrified. Now you're like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen?
Right.
You're going to want to come through that computer screen and stab me in the eye with a pen. And immediately you go to the far end of the fear spectrum and you ask yourself, what could this guy tell me that would make me want to stab him in the eye with a pen? And then I lay it out, my ask, or I share the bad news. And what happens on your side of the table is you're like, that's terrible, but it ain't so bad. I can manage that. Because what I asked or what I shared with you paled in comparison to the monster that you dreamt up in your brain, to the point where you're relieved now. And if it's an ask, I'm probably going to get it from you. If it's bad news, you may not like it, but you'll swallow it a lot easier than you would if I had just come out and said it.
Mm-hmm. Two things come to mind. One is, I think of actually letting somebody go, right? You can't really say much after today's your last day, right? But you could say, hey, I've got some hard news, or this is going to come as a shock, or...
I want you to say, you're going to think I'm the biggest bee on the planet. You're going to want to reach across the table and choke the life out of me. Because those two thoughts are probably going to go through their mind. I'm not saying they're going to act on it, but that's probably what's going to go through their mind. So give them an opportunity, and whatever you do, all of you, when you're having these tough conversations, as you're preparing your accusations audits and you deliver your accusations audits, slow down and pause a second or two in between each one to let the accusations audit land for effect. I'm going to throw one out and I'm going to watch your facial expression. I'm going to watch your body language. How did it land?
Right.
Did I throw out an accusations audit and they go like this? Did I throw out an accusations audit and they go like this? Those are two different things that mean a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information trapped in that. Now, having said all that, I'm not looking to get a response. This is a courtesy. This is probably one of the more altruistic things that we do at the Black Swan Group, where we take a negative light and we point it back at ourselves. We know it's not true. We know whatever we lay out in the accusations audit doesn't have any evidence to back it up. But that doesn't matter. What we're trying to do is preemptively get rid of them to clear up their brain, because as long as those negative emotions and dynamics are bouncing around in their head, they're not listening to me.
It's cool. There's a generosity to it and insightful. You used that term, which I thought was very cool. Situationally insightful was what you said, because you're putting yourself in their shoes, right? And they're receiving this information.
No. I'm going to stop you there. We're not putting ourselves in their shoes. Get rid of that phraseology.
If you were them, what would you be thinking?
That's right. So you are looking through their eyes. You're not
through
going
their eyes, not their shoes, but their eyes. Okay, good. Now, here's the thing, though. I'm not going to call it a danger, but I have seen some people do it, and it can come across as manipulative. It can come across as they're saying it to get their way. So there's a mindset or a genuineness, I think, that's really important if you're going to do a good accusation audit. Can you speak to that?
All right. So why do you say it was manipulative? You probably said it was manipulative because it sounded manipulative.
Well, it came across as...
Okay, you said came across, I said sounded like. I think we're in the same ballpark.
True.
Right?
Yes.
So what's the difference between manipulation and influence?
In the eye of the beholder, I guess. Not much.
Well, you're close. It's the intent of the speaker.
Yeah, one is something that's good, hopefully, for both of us, and the manipulative is good for me and ain't good for you.
Manipulation is always going to be one-sided.
Yeah.
I'm going to be at an advantage over you. Influence is about making us, to your point, both better off. We don't teach this stuff to manipulate.
I know.
However, people use it to manipulate all the time. One of the analogies that Chris used to use was he would hold up his cell phone and he would ask people, take out your cell phones, hold them up. And everybody, of course, in the room has a cell phone. And he goes, you guys use these things daily. And they said, yes. And the second question is, do you know that there are people all over the globe that use this thing to operate in criminal enterprises? And they're like, yeah, of course we know that. And yet you use a phone anyway. Because that's not you.
Right.
And so, yeah, you can use these skills to manipulate, but the manipulation often comes across in the delivery. Now, there are people who are hand-handed with the use of it because they're still novices and they come off as weird or maybe even manipulative and they get called on it. Okay. If you're new and you get called on it, if somebody points out the fact that they feel like you're manipulating them, what have you done to them? You've offended them. So what's the way to remedy that? I know. Here's a grand idea. Apologize.
Radical.
You apologize and say, it seems like I said and did something to offend you. Would you be against walking me through exactly what felt manipulative? And so you were trying to learn, right? I'm trying to get better. My intent was not to offend, but obviously I did. So first thing I'm going to do is apologize. And the second thing I'm going to do is learn so I can get better. Where was it within this conversation that you felt like I was manipulating?
Mm-hmm.
And so there are people who will throw out the accusation of manipulation as a weapon.
Mm.
Because what if I say to you, I don't want you to take offense to this, Shannon, but it sounds like you're trying to manipulate me. I've called into question your integrity. And no one likes that. No one likes the specter of being a dirty pool player hanging over their head. And so for some of us, what that will do will cause us to overreact and start compromising in ways that we shouldn't, just to have that specter removed from it. So is this guy telling me that he feels like I'm manipulating him because it's genuine or because he's got an ulterior motive?
Right.
Because I'm going to view that accusation of manipulation as an attack on my character. So I'm going to smoke it out and make him provide me with evidence as to how he came to that conclusion in a deferential manner, of course.
Which is interesting because then you're just leaning back on the curiosity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is when you can stay in that no ego, no authority place,
yeah,
and stay curious, you will, I like what you said, smoke that out. Now, before I forget, I'm working on my follow through here. What's the R?
Remember.
Oh, okay.
The R is remember. Your counterpart is not the adversary. Whatever the issue is the adversary. Your challenge is, how do I make my counterpart a team member in this problem-solving venture?
Interesting. All right. So we've got caviar. So this is what you do ahead of sensitive conversation. So this is your preparation. And you as an analyst are going to do that very thoroughly. I probably will do it much more quickly, but I still need to do it. And I love the acronym. It's very helpful to be able to do that. So we've been talking about like how to do tactical empathy. You've given some great demonstrations. And one of the points that's interesting, it's come up a little bit on our team, is tactical empathy is different than empathy. Or is it?
The original definition of empathy was tied to emotional empathy. Mm-hmm. And if you're only demonstrating empathy based on people's emotions, there's a whole area of the world where you're missing other dynamics that need to be highlighted. So tactical empathy, if you want to get academic about it, it's more in line with what Goldman wrote about in 95, which was cognitive empathy.
I have this debate with a friend of mine.
And so with tactical empathy, the sole driving point behind it is removing yourself as a threat to improve your ability to think so that we can collaborate faster. Mm-hmm. That's where the tactical comes in. I'm doing it for a purpose. It is the calibrated application of emotional intelligence designed specifically for you to, number one, recognize the counterpart's perspective, and number two, articulate that recognition.
I'm just still resonating with the phrase calibrated use of emotional intelligence. I love every second of that. Like that is like, bam. Let me just take a step back for a sec from a context standpoint. Let's talk about how critical this is for leaders. So again, I work with entrepreneurial leaders. You work with all kinds of leaders. So let's talk about how this is important, why this is important, the difference it can make. Because leadership is an opportunity to have influence over people. It's also fraught with sensitive conversations. Thank you very much. And as I was thinking about in preparation for this conversation, it's like, and most people are very ill-equipped. They have no training. They've got where they've gotten to through street smarts and learning it. Very few people have coaching or training on this. And I love it because this is so practical and so tactical. But it's like, why is it so absolutely vital for leaders to know this, especially since they have positional authority, but it doesn't really work to come at it from that authority standpoint?
I want to create an environment where I have team members that want to do something as opposed to feeling like they are being forced to do something. Do I have the authority to mandate that they do something? Of course I do. All of us have the ability to work under that BIS, that because I said so model. But when you make or you give direction and you haven't taken into account the impact that that direction is going to have on the people who are charged with doing the work, you are creating resentful people. And you're creating people who view you as a threat. You're making their lives uncomfortable. Revenge is a powerful motivator. And they may say yes to you because they have to if they want to stay gainfully employed. But given the opportunity, even your direct reports are going to get back at you for making them feel a certain way. And so instead of creating an environment where it's replete with those people, why not create an environment where, and I think I wrote this in the book, where George Reed was at the War College, said that he wanted to create an environment where I could call my guys and say, tomorrow I'm assaulting the gates of hell. And the only words that come out of their mouth is, whose car are we taking? What time do I need to be there? That's the environment that you want to create. So that's why it's important for even leaders to be able to subordinate themselves to their direct reports, to be able to defer to their direct reports, to demonstrate that you have a keen grasp on what the impact is going to be on the people that are going to be tasked with doing the job. And it's no different than what I did as a hostage negotiator. As a hostage negotiator, I was, as far as the guy on the inside was concerned, I was the boss. As far as he was concerned, I was the chief of police. As far as he was concerned, I made all the decisions. And trust me, it was not lost on him, nor was it lost on me, that I could negatively impact his environment anytime I wanted. Anytime I wanted. So if that is actually true, what's the purpose of flaunting that? What do I do by displaying the fact that I could rock his world at any moment? That's always an option. You know, people think that leaders need to be direct and forceful and no nonsense. There are times for that. Ego is not 100% evil. There are times when conversations have to be direct. They have to be borderline rude. They have to be urgent because you are dealing with exigent circumstances. But the problem with leadership is that we view everything as an exigent circumstance.
Yeah, we do.
And it's not. And so I know where I want to end up as a boss. I know where I want to take my team. Before I take my team there, I want to have a discussion with my team about the impact that my thought process is likely going to have on their future. They may not tell me anything that sways me from my decision, but the fact that I took the time to say, hey, what do you think? You're building all kinds of credit. Credit that you're going to be able to call in at a later time. And who knows? You know, you may poll your people about what you plan to do and get their input, and there's a better solution that comes out of it.
Yeah.
We have to be humble enough to know that we don't have all of the answers. We have to be humble enough to believe that, you know, if we spent as much time bringing people up that are behind us as we do reaching for the next brass ring, organizations all over the globe would be running more smoothly.
100%. And if anything, your team will push you up.
Yep.
You don't have to be like going for the brass ring. I love it. And you talk about, having trust-based influence and,
Yep.
and a culture, which to me is like music to my ears, which is really key. So you're trusted, you know them, they feel known, they feel seen, they feel heard. They know they can have a creative conversation with you. They know that you'll listen and you'll subordinate your own thoughts and feelings to be able to understand them. You may still choose a different course of action, but they're included in that. They're not just some automaton doing your edict from on high kind of thing.
Right.
So one of the things that I wanted to know, and this is totally self-serving for me, is, tactical empathy, and there's 12 leadership skills that you talk about in the book, which are all good. And I hope everyone studies this, even though I'm not really a studier, but it's just so bloody useful. It's so good. So in terms of tactical empathy, and you've reached some kind of rapport and seems like, sounds like, feels like, and that, and the part of the conversation where I don't feel knowledgeable yet, and I know you're going to say it's going to be super easy, and I'm moment, but how do I put in place my own objectives, or how do I put that our objectives really, if I'm a leader? How is it that the conversation gets to a point where, and here's what needs to happen? I don't even know. What are the words to say so that we can get lined up towards what needs to happen, especially if I've started off with some opposition?
All right. So think about in terms of this. I'm a big stickler on sequencing the conversation. We talked a little bit about that earlier, but the conversation is basically broken up into 3 parts: discover, guide, lead.
Discover, guide, lead. Okay.
Discovery, you're on a fact-finding mission.
Yep.
You're trying to learn as much as you can that you don't already know. Trying to uncover those black swans, those little pieces of information that could change the direction of the conversation. So that's about 75% of the conversation. 20% of the conversation is guiding. Now, this is where you get your opportunity to explain.
Okay.
This is what's going to happen next. Here's my position. Here's what it should look like going forward. Here are the consequences if it does not happen going forward. And then leading. You start talking about implementation. How's it going to look? What are the next steps? So in the case of direct report and boss, I'm going to bring the direct report in, and I'm going to summarize why we're having the meeting. I'm going to throw out a handful of accusations audits within that summary. And then I'm going to say to them something to the effect, you probably have a good vision on what your performance has looked like over the last 6 months and what you intend for it to look like over the next 6 months. Would you be against walking me through that vision? So what have I done there? I've come in as the boss to have a pretty sensitive conversation with a direct report, and I'm saying to the direct report, you go first. They're not expecting that. They're not getting that anywhere else. Somebody to actually show a genuine interest into their thoughts. And subconsciously, interested persons become interesting persons. Subconsciously, they want to return the favor. This is one of the biggest selling points of tactical empathy, is it encourages reciprocity. So I let them go first. They rarely ever get to go first in their conversation. And I say to them, what are you thinking? What's your vision? And I use that word specifically, vision, because I want to turn them into a narrator for a movie that's been playing in their head. They knew this conversation was going to happen. They know what they've done over the previous 6 months. They thought about what the next 6 months are going to look like. So that movie's already played in their head. I want them to narrate that movie for me. And I'm listening specifically for where does it line up with my thoughts? How does it line up with the realities of the environment? And I'm going to be making note of where it diverges, making note of where it meshes. Where it meshes, I'm going to be hanging labels on those things, those positives. We've talked the entire time that we've been on this call about using labels to get rid of negatives. Labels also reinforce positive. So when I hear something positive that supports my position, even though it's coming out of direct report's mouth, I'm going to hang a label on it, because that's going to shore it up. It's going to be harder for them to push back against me when it's my turn to talk, if they've already said, here are some of the things that support your position. And then we get to the guiding part. Now I get to say my piece. Now I get to dance. I get to explain. And so the transition is very simple. Would you be against me explaining to you the realities of the current environment?
Mm.
It's a no-oriented question.
I was just going to point that out because you've used it a couple times, and this is so powerful. Most people have their old training is like getting to yes.
Yep.
So much freedom and so much power in asking. I was coaching someone on this yesterday, as a matter of fact. Ask a no-oriented question, and of course they're going to say, "No, I'm not against that." It's a
Yeah.
massive invitation. So anyway, I'm glad you said that because I wanted to call attention. You've done it strategically a couple of times. So yeah, would you be against?
Yeah. Would you be against me walking you through what the realities of the environment are?
Right.
I pause for a second. To your point, they say no. Well, I know that what I'm about to tell them, they're not going to want to hear. So it's time for the accusations on it. So I'm going to throw 2 or 3 in there. This is probably going to feel like a punch in the stomach.
Mm-hmm.
When we're done with this conversation, you're going to want to take that stapler and run it right through my temple.
I love how tangible you are about this.
I try to get visceral with it because, again, I want them to be thinking the absolute worst thing. And then I lay it out, soup to nuts. Here's the deal. Here's where you were. Here's where you are now. If we don't get to this, you will expose yourself to progressive discipline up to and including termination. I am committed to your success here. What do we need to do to ensure that X, Y, and Z doesn't happen again? If it happens again, what should be my next move? If in 2 weeks we've revisited this and we find like we're off track, what do we need to do to get ourselves back on track? So those are what and how implementation questions. The more that I can get him or her to respond to those implementation questions, the more likely they are to follow through. Because generally speaking, it's not the case across the board, but generally speaking, people want to be viewed as consistent in word, thought, and action. And subconsciously, what I've told them is these are probably going to be hiccups along the way. How are you going to navigate these hiccups?
Nice.
And because they're coming up with the solution to navigate the hiccups, they're more likely to follow through with it, as opposed to me going, all right, and if this doesn't happen, this is what's going to happen. And if we find ourselves off track, oh, you want to bring you back? It was none of that. It was like, what should we do?
Mm-hmm.
And then very important, and I'm finding this in the private sector to be more troublesome than I thought it ever would be, because I come from a paramilitary type of organization, and that is documentation. Oh my gosh, would you guys please document your conversations?
Yeah.
You can't fire somebody because you had 6 conversations that weren't documented.
True.
So if you're going to have a performance review that's not pleasant, don't you want a jumping off point so that when it comes time to let this guy or this woman go, you've got evidence to back up why you're letting them go, as opposed to, I've told him and he's just not working out. In my previous world, that would never fly. We documented everything. I had a discussion with Shannon. If it's nothing more than sending an email to yourself, had a conversation with Shannon. She agreed to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She knows what the consequences are if she doesn't fulfill her obligations. We'll revisit in 2 weeks. Boom. Now I know where it started. So I got a timestamp there, and I'm looking to build on that timestamp if her behavior doesn't improve. So document, 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 please.
Yes. Rubber stamp that. It's true. And it's so fascinating. One of the thing that's coming to mind is the cost of not having these conversations. Having them poorly, not having them at all, avoiding them, is you can have people go down the road for a long time, getting further and further and further off track. And then it's some kind of a blow up. It's a mess. It's a disaster. It comes out of left field for them because no one had the you-know-whats, the body parts to have those conversations. And it's a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Capital MESS. It's a disaster. I'm all about maximizer strategies with people. And this is why I love tactical empathy. It's why I love Black Swan Group. It's why I love your book, because it's how to think about something that's really hard and difficult for most people. So to me, the cost of not having these conversations and not getting good at it is a big deal.
Without question. Avoiding conflict does not equate alignment.
Ooh, avoiding conflict does not equate alignment.
Yeah.
Bam.
Yep. And I've seen it time and again where people have closed their eyes to poor performing employees and have not documented anything, or have documented the opposite. And then something severe happens and everybody wants to know, well, when did this start? Like, well, actually it started 6 months ago, but we just didn't do anything.
4 years.
That's a bad look.
It's a bad look. It's true. Now, just a question that comes to mind, the structure of this conversation, discover, guide, and lead. You may not use accusation audits, maybe you would, but it seems like you could also use it for giving someone a promotion or getting people to kind of stretch out of their comfort zone to somewhere they didn't think. I don't know. Is that crazy to think that you could use some of like the tactical empathy or helping people stretch into something that they hadn't thought of themselves, or am I taking it in a direction it shouldn't go?
No, because when you talk about stretching somebody out of their comfort zone, I mean, the operative word in there is comfort. Mm-hmm. You're asking them to stretch out of the comfort zone, you're asking them to become uncomfortable.
Right.
And so an accusations audit is wholly appropriate in that environment. So you want them to strive to compete for a position that's open within the organization. Mm-hmm. But you also know that they're really happy where they are, but you see so much more potential. Yeah, absolutely. Accusations audit that as well, because they don't want to hear it. I don't want to get promoted. Why would I want to get promoted and make more money and make my life better when I'm happy where I am?
Yeah. Or leave the certainty, right?
Yes, that's the bigger thing, is the certainty. Because uncertainty is the mother of fear.
You're just dropping these pearls of wisdom, Derek. Actually, one of my big takeaways from this conversation is what can be perceived as a threat. And so anytime that someone is taking them out of their comfort zone for good, what you think is good, or because things are not going according to your plan, at least, anything that could be hijacking that part of the brain, this is the strategy you need to have from a very curious place, not from a manipulative, only benefit me place. So it's interesting, like you've given me a whole new sense of awareness for, I guess, when to use tactical empathy. Does that land?
Yeah. Remember this. Anytime I want or I need is in your head or is in the head of the person with whom you're engaging, by default, you are a threat. Oh. By default. You got a warm lead from somebody that maybe wants to be coached by strategic coach. It's a warm lead. It's not a cold lead. It's not an outbound call by you. It's a warm referral. Even though the person is expecting your call or expecting to meet with you, the minute that you darken their doorway, the minute that they answer the phone, you put them in a negative spot. Because they know that after the interaction with you, they are going to have less of something than what they have right now, if it's nothing more than time. And so even though it was an amenable agreement for the meeting, you're going in as a threat. And so this is why we talk about the importance of removing yourself and understanding that's what makes the conversation sensitive. When I want or I need is in your head or in the head of your counterpart, you are going to be in a sensitive conversation.
Brilliant. And what a perfect place to end it. So, Derek, thank you for your generous time. Apologize for keeping you after. Please thank the next person for me. And thank you for putting your care and wisdom and thought into this book, Ego, Authority, Failure. I'm profoundly grateful. It's impacted my life, and I can't wait for it to impact other people's too.
I appreciate all your kind words.
You're welcome. All right. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
All right, Shannon. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.